Morning, everyone. How are we?
Good, lads. How are you?
How are you, CJ?
Good, good.
G'day, Jonesy.
Feeling good after a long 8-hour sleep last night. We're going to talk about sleep today, I think.
Yeah.
That was a pretty poor segue. When it really fell flat, everyone just looked at me like, what?
Well,
Anyway.
no. Well, to be honest, Chris, no, because
You didn't sleep?
my sleep lately has been sucking balls. It's it's shit.
We'll stop doing that, and that might help, you know?
Yeah. It's I don't know. It seems to be the last 6 months. I've had a look at it. I'm sort of waking up at around 2-3 a.m. and cannot get back to sleep. My mind just starts going bang. It's on. My initial half of my sleep, which is your non-REM sleep, is deep, so I have no trouble falling asleep, and I'm like, bang, I'm comatose. But then I'll wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, and it'll take me maybe half an hour, 40 minutes to get back to sleep.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
You having dreams, mate?
No dreams.
dreams.
Nah. So this is a great little podcast, and I have been looking into it to help myself. And just before I go on, a lot of the information that I'll talk about today come from the Huberman Lab, and I'll just recommend to anyone that's listening to this who has trouble sleeping and maybe experiencing the same as me. On the 8th of August, one of his episodes, the Sleep Toolkit, that Huberman put out on his podcast, was so helpful for me. So if I can just relate of any part of that information plus some more on this chat, that's good. But
Roo, does he touch on the sort of relationship between following a keto diet and sleep? Does he talk about that at all?
no.
Yeah.
No, and I have thought about that, mate. I have thought that is there a nutritional deficiency that's causing my sleep interruption?
Yes, there's an interesting, I don't know if it's a theory, but there's some interesting science around, obviously, in ketosis, your body has to work a little bit harder to make energy and that sort of stuff. And obviously the brain needs sugar. The brain runs on sugar. It can run on, ketones and stuff like that, but prefers to run on glucose. But essentially when you follow a keto diet and you're in ketosis, you can stimulate slightly higher levels of cortisol, which can mess with your sleep.
Okay.
So a lot of people who struggle with sleep who are following a keto diet really do well with taking some exogenous ketones or some amino acids before bed.
Okay.
And that can help with deep sleep throughout the night. So I don't know if that's something you've explored or
I haven't, mate.
come across.
No.
But a lot of people do quite well on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you say some amino acids?
Yep.
Did you say? Yep.
Yep.
I do take essential
or some
aminos.
exogenous ketones, so some ketone esters or something like that.
Yeah,
Take.
okay.
They're pretty expensive, but
Yeah.
you could try it. Must sort of mess around with it and see if it's something that helps you.
Yeah. I guess we can talk about supplementation as we go.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Maybe we could talk about the sleep cycles initially.
Yeah. Might have put the horse in front of the cart there, or vice versa, whatever it is. But
So I guess we got it's quite a, if you think about it, it's quite an ancestral topic. Sleep. Every living organism on the planet follows sort of a circadian rhythm. So if anyone doesn't know what that is, it's sort of a 24-hour cycle based on the setting and the rising and setting of the sun, and everyone's sort of internal rhythms are based around that. So when it was dark, there's some release of hormones. We get ready to go to sleep. When the sun starts coming up, there's a different release of other hormones, cortisol and whatnot. And then we wake up. And that sort of rhythm has been around for probably millions or billions of years, as long as the sun's been around. So initially we've got our circadian rhythm, and then when we do fall asleep, we have sort of several sleep cycles, non-REM and REM sleep.
And I reckon that your sleep cycles sort of go in 90-minute waves.
Yeah. Yep.
And you have about 4 to 6 90-minute cycles throughout the night, depending on what time you're going to bed and what time you're getting up.
It depends where you look. Some people say it's more about the sleep cycles that you get. So you should be getting sort of 3 to 4 a night. If you're not getting that, it's maybe not about the amount of hours you're getting, but the amount of sleep cycles you have. But it depends where you look, I suppose. So the brain's sort of still active whilst you're asleep, responds to sort of a multitude of stimuli that's going on. So you drift in and out of various stages of sleep throughout the night. So you've got sort of non-REM sleep. I think they call it N1, 2, and 3.
Mm.
So N1 is when you're transitioning to sleep. That's sort of first bit, falling asleep, sort of 5 to 10 minutes. You're getting drowsy. N2 is probably 50% of your sleep time. It sort of takes 10 to 25 minutes. Your eyes stop moving, your heart rate slows, your body temperature goes down. And I think if you listen to Huberman, he talks a lot about body temperature and that being a marker for falling asleep, waking up, possibly waking up in the middle of the night. I don't know if maybe you're too hot or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So then N3, restorative phase, we've got sort of an increase in hormones, cellular repair. Blood goes directly to muscles for repair and things like that. And then so that sort of cycle takes sort of 70 to 90 minutes. Then you got REM sleep, which is about 20% of your sleep time. When you
that non-REM sleep is pretty much, say, your first part of your sleep.
Yes.
That's your deepest part of your sleep.
Yep.
So your deepest is the stage 3 of the non-REM, isn't it? So that's your deep sleep. Yeah, that's where your brain waves drop right down to quite a low kilohertz. You're very deeply sort of resting. Your brain is slowing right down, isn't it?
And as you mentioned there, Jonesy, there's a lot of rejuvenation and body repair goes on. So
during that time,
there's a lot of physical rejuvenation of your cells and all that sort of stuff.
Growth hormone production and cellular repair and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All that good stuff.
And you're just about to get into the REM level, which is sort of like your second half.
Yeah.
And as I was reading somewhere, that REM cycle, sorry to cut you off, I'll just butt in here. That's where a lot of people have problems of sleep, as I just mentioned earlier. So that REM half of your sleep, of your night, your cycle, is where most of the problems of sleep occur.
Yeah. Yep. So REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, it's called. You're almost completely paralyzed. Your muscles are paralyzed. You've got shallow breathing, rapid eye movement, as they say. It's important for neural connections between sort of memory and cognition and things like that. So in each cycle through REM and non-REM is about 90 minutes, and you want to kind of flow through these cycles naturally and wake without an alarm, sort of using that circadian rhythm. Obviously, the modern ancestral man is probably going to have some bright light at night. They're not really making, when it's dark, they're not making their fire, sitting around the fire anymore. We've got the big bright lights. So we'll talk about sort of making a sleep environment or making a nice sleep sanctuary, maybe we should call it a bit later on, because we're not like we are the modern ancestral man. We're not ancestral man. We're not around the cave, so we talk about that circadian rhythm. When it gets dark, melatonin's released into the bloodstream, and then when your eyes and skin sense the morning light, you've got serotonin and cortisol released. We probably don't do that as much anymore as modern man. We're not going to sleep when it's dark and waking up when it's light. We're probably tweaking that a little bit. So I guess there's probably a lot of sleep issues that people are having because of our modern lifestyle. So we'll probably give some tips on how to create a good sleep environment. But so that's sort of our circadian rhythm and our sleep cycles.
So that REM cycle, that's less deep. It's a shallow cycle than the non-REM, isn't it?
REM's really interesting, isn't it? Because if you look at it on an EEG, like a electroencephalogram that measures your brainwaves, REM sleep looks a lot like being awake.
Exactly, that's what I read.
Which is really fascinating.
Yeah.
And like CJ said, you become paralyzed because otherwise you start dreaming and your brain activity is quite similar to wakefulness. Your body paralyzes yourself so that you can't act out what's happening in your dreams. Otherwise you're going to start, getting up and walking around and doing shit.
Yeah.
But you're going to be asleep.
Yeah. And it's like that feeling, when you wake up and you think, oh, was I asleep or not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you have this sort of 3/4 sleep, but your brain's actually still, like you say, your brain's actually active like you are awake. That's crazy.
Yeah, REM's.
Well, what's
really
amazing about that? What's amazing about that point, Matty, is that there's actually been some studies done on the brain in relation to that, and people in dream states are having the same physical experience as though they were actually having the experience. So the body can't determine the difference between the experience itself and the thought of the experience. I found that really, really amazing to think about.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting.
And
So Mickey, is that
Sorry,
sort of
go
like when people sleepwalk and things like that, is that sort of that's obviously going to happen during REM sleep, I imagine. But is that sort of like some inadequacy of the body, like not paralyzing the muscles so that you can sort of live out what you're doing, or have you come across that?
I'm not 100. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think it's more the example that I've used before is say for instance you were involved in a car accident and you had the adrenaline dump and the full experience emotionally, chemically, physically that you would have going through that experience, and then that night and the subsequent nights after, you relive that experience in your dream state, your body will go through an identical physical chemical experience to what you did when you were in that vehicle.
So you have those same releases of adrenaline and that same actual brain chemistry going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that in itself speaks to the power of the brain in terms of, well, you know, what an amazing mechanism it is for, you know, that's a way it's being used in a negative context. And it's obviously, you know, I can't imagine you'd be having a great sleep if you were reliving that experience. And that's where we sort of come into, you know, potential issues with post-traumatic stress and things like that. But I think it also spoke volumes to me about how we can use the brain to manifest and use it positively for creating positive experiences and things like that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you think people are more likely to sort of succumb to things like PTSD if they have chronic issues with sleep, so they're not getting that chance for the brain to sort of go through and process things? Therefore, they're going to be more likely to suffer from PTSD. Is that a link we could make, or?
Well, look, unfortunately, I can speak about this on two levels. One level is from a study perspective, and that's exactly right. And the second level is I've actually had a bit of PTSD myself, and my sleep has been a significant issue now for me for half a decade. And it's sent me down many, many rabbit holes. Huberman was one. But I mean, for a period there, I was functioning off sort of 2 or 3 hours sleep a night.
Wow.
And it got to a point where it was really, really debilitating. You know, you can function for so long like that, but then, you know, when you're, you know, educating yourself or you're even conducting employment and things like that. Me personally, everyone is unique and different. I know there's people out there who probably function quite well on somewhere between 2 and 4 hours sleep a night. But I think genetically for me, I've worked out that sort of around that 7 to 8 hours is my optimal functioning point. And so after not functioning for quite a while, it started to have quite a detrimental impact on my health. And I think that there's certainly major correlations between poor sleep and a vast range of mental health issues, you know, whether it's anxiety, depression, the development of PTSD related symptoms, things like that. So, yeah, for me, this is a major one for people. You know, I think there's a lot of people suffering globally with poor sleep. And I think that where we're going to delve into routine or regimen, establishing that routine and what's involved, I think it could be really, really helpful for people.
Mick, were you your sleep, was that struggling to get to sleep, or were you waking up in the middle of the night interrupted?
No, I would get to sleep pretty quickly, and then normally within sort of 90 minutes to the 3-hour mark, I would wake quite abruptly. And then because of the adrenaline I was feeling at that point of waking, you know, it was normally many hours before I would, you know, manage to get back to sleep again. So I've tried a variety of things through that period. I think the big issue for people who struggle to sleep is they then get frustrated with not being able to sleep, which only exasperates the issue itself. So I got to the point where if I did wake abruptly, I'd actually take myself out of bed, and I would then go and do something completely different.
Yep.
Whether it was read a book, put on some TV, something like that. And then I would return to bed once I felt my eyes starting to feel like they wanted to get back to sleep again. But I had a doctor say to me, and I know Hooverman talks about this as well, your bed is for two things. It's for copulation or it's for sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not doing one of those two things, take yourself out of it.
Yeah.
So I try and only be in my bed now if I'm actively going to sleep or I am asleep.
Yeah, I'd probably say that your bed's best for just for one thing, going to sleep. I reckon the secret to a healthy sex life is having sex out of the bedroom. Because when I go to bed, all I want to do is go to sleep. I can't be bothered doing anything else.
It's probably for another podcast,
Yeah,
that one, isn't it?
save that for the kitchen bench or
David's
the.
sex life. Here we go. We're getting an explicit on this one, aren't we?
So anyway, as you mentioned, Jonesy, the non-REM was the deeper and physical rejuvenation.
Yep.
The REM sleep is where the more mental rejuvenation occurs. Yeah, and if that REM sleep is solid, that's why you wake up refreshed. Increased memory, increased learning capabilities and stuff like that. If that REM sleep is interrupted or it's not quality or deep, then that mental rejuvenation doesn't occur. So that's when you're waking up and you're feeling a bit brain foggy, a bit fatigued. You're waking up like, oh, man, shocking sleep, and you sort of, your day doesn't start off the best. So it's so critical getting that mental rejuvenation in that REM period.
Yeah. If we go back to what Mickey was talking about there, that was probably an issue that needed to be rectified with some doctor's help. Is that right, Mick? We aren't doctors at all. But
definitely visit to the GP. I think we've spoke before about our interactions individually at times with a mental health practitioner. That's something that I've utilised quite frequently over the years. So we just discussed what my habits were in relation to sleep, and then really working out a positive sleep routine that I could implement consistently day in, day out.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about that further down the track. But I think for issues like that might be something that needs to be looked at by a physician or something. But we'll give some.
Or maybe
we'll
a natural health practitioner. We don't need to be too sort of like conventional medicine centric, because I think there's a lot of supplements and herbs and things like that.
Yeah,
that can definitely help. I think the risk if you go to a doctor is that they're going to recommend, more like a pharmaceutical, like a Valium or something like that. And I think maybe there's better options than just like pharmaceutical drugs, because they'll sort of have the sledgehammer effect. But I think sometimes if you went to a natural health practitioner, they might give you a more gentle sort of natural based therapy. So
I guess we've talked about sort of even two of our podcast buddies having sleep issues. So you can assume that a lot of people have sleep issues and have chronic sleep deficit.
Yeah.
That affects the body and the way the body processes carbohydrate or stores carbohydrates, sort of alters hormones, that kind of can affect metabolism and weight gain and appetite and things like that. We did talk about the effects on mood, concentration, memory.
Yeah.
Can lead to stress increase. We talk about the increased frustration of not being able to get to sleep, and that being a snowball effect. It's just,
really debilitating, isn't it?
You don't really think about all the things that it can affect. So having some things in place, like you guys obviously have had some strategies to get better sleep. So we could probably talk about that, creating a decent sleep environment. Smithy, I don't know if I cut you off there, but.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing with you. Just the detrimental effects of chronic sleep deficit or insomnia is terrible. Like, I mean, if you look at the studies, like chronic insomnia, 3 times higher all-cause mortality.
Is that right?
3 times higher.
Yeah, right. Well, you got 3 pillars of health and well-being: nutrition, exercise, and sleep. And out of those 3, I would say that sleep is the most critical, because if that's affected, then that also affects your ability to exercise. It also affects your nutrition. It affects your diet.
Yeah.
So I would put sleep as the number 1 pillar in health and well-being.
Yeah. Well, sleep is so crucial for the brain.
Yeah.
I mean, you have that physical repair of the body, but you also have sleep is that time when the brain is actually detoxifying and repairing itself and recharging itself from a physical point of view. So if you're not getting enough sleep, it's really detrimental to the brain, and then everything's going to be a flow-on effect from there. You're probably not going to feel like exercising as much. You know, you might start having problems with your neurotransmitters and getting issues with anxiety or depression. You know, your motivation might go out the window, then you're not going to eat as well.
Yeah.
It's a whole snowball effect, isn't it? And you need, like you say, you need all those 3 to be going well.
Harmonious,
Yeah, sleep's I mean, they even use it as a torture mechanism, don't they? You know, if they want to torture someone, you can just use chronic sleep deprivation. You'll break people, and so it's really bad. You know, if you can't get to sleep.
So if you have sort of chronic sleep deficit, there is a bit of a theory that the primitive man, primal man, may have used some biphasic sleep. I don't know if you guys looked into that, or napping. So sleeping during the day, maybe they're up during the night. They're tending to the fire. They're tending to a little human that they've made in the cave, or they're protecting their tribe from a bear attack, whatever it might be. So someone's on lookout. So they talk about this biphasic sleep pattern or napping during the day. I don't know if the modern ancestral man could use some of that. I just cannot nap during the day. I don't know. Some people can fall asleep and maybe they get in that extra sleep cycle that they've missed out on the night time. I don't know. What do you guys think about sort of napping? And
I nap and I love it. And it's got to be no more than 15 minutes, 20 max. If you go beyond that, you become drowsy and have a negative effect. But even 10 minutes, not even that, sometimes even 5.
Real power nap.
A real little power nap.
Like
just,
a siesta?
and you wake up and you are just totally refreshed, revitalised. And all those European countries that have an afternoon siesta, they reckon their work productivity is so much greater because of the people having a refreshed mind in the afternoon hours.
Ruth, do you find it hard to get to sleep when you have an afternoon nap?
Nah.
Or you can do it pretty quickly?
Yeah, I'll just lay down and because I got to sleep on my back or I sleep on my side, but when I nap, I lay on my tummy and I just I pass out. Yeah. And then I'll wake up and it's been a real deep sleep, and then as soon as I wake, I get up. I don't lay and doze. I just snap out of it.
Is that every day, or just use it when you
not every day, but
sleep deprived?
When I feel like it, when I need it. Yeah, I don't do it every day. Definitely not every day, but if I feel like
I'd love to be able to nap during the day.
I reckon I
can't do it.
Could. I don't.
Yeah.
I reckon I could. Have you tried? I've heard a lot of people talking about the method where if you don't have too much trouble getting to sleep for a nap, actually having a black coffee just before you take a nap.
I've heard this. Ben Greenfield talks about it.
And so then if you time it quite well, then obviously you can get to sleep before the stimulatory effect of the caffeine kicks in. But then if you have that quick power nap, so 10, 15, 20 minutes, then you wake up and the caffeine's sort of in full force and you wake up alert and ready to go, and there's none of that. Because if you sleep too long for a nap, it kills you, right?
That's
like if you go for an hour or something like that, it's like the end of the world. You wake up and you can hardly move and you just... You're a mess, I reckon. Like, it takes you forever to transition.
I can't go that long anyway. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's my body just wakes up after 5 or 10
minutes. Yeah, because that'd be my risk, I reckon. If I had a nice nap, might go for like an hour and then you just wrecked. Like, I mean, I've been a shift worker for a long time, and so I have had times when you fall asleep during the day, and if you go too long, it's a killer.
It's negative
Brutal.
effect. Yeah. I'll give that a go.
Yeah, it's. I haven't tried it personally, but I've heard him talking about it, and it's. I
probably don't need to because I wake up.
Yeah, well, if you're waking up fresh anyway, then maybe.
Yeah.
Don't even bother.
I guess for someone that does slip into an hour-long nap, which is pretty negative, the coffee kick might help them wake up in time.
Wake up, yeah.
But
it was just interesting. I picked up on that theory, or read that theory about sort of ancestral man being having 2 phases of sleep, one at night and one in the afternoon.
Yeah, right.
Especially if they were maybe ancestrally, Rooster, you were a protector. You watched over the tribe, and I was just falling asleep.
But it's a great point you make, mate, because with some research and listening to things, I have adopted more now some behavioural things to help my sleep, which are probably more around the primitive man sort of thing.
Maybe creating more of an environment, like
Creating an environment, but also behavioural things. You know, like I'm getting up in the morning now, and as soon as I wake up, I walk out my front door and I look at because my house faces the east. I look at the morning sun, and I'm just getting that immediate sunlight. And so Huberman actually mentions that is very important, but not even getting it through a window, because that actually interferes with the rays that you're receiving. So to go outside and get that natural sunlight, and not to look into the sun because it can damage your eyes, but looking towards the sun in that direction can help just the cycle. Your circadian rhythm is actually started in the morning. Yes. So you're starting it by eliminating that melatonin release in the morning by seeing the sun, increasing your cortisol levels, and you're kicking off your circadian rhythm. And he was saying that if you do that effectively in the morning to start off your circadian rhythm, then it will work more effectively in the evening when you need it. Found that pretty interesting.
It's almost a mood increaser, I find. You go outside, you look at the sun. Yeah. Maybe if you're a bit groggy or you've woken up a bit on the wrong side of the bed, you go out, you see the sun. It's almost an immediate mood enhancer, right?
It is, hey? Totally. Yeah. And then he also mentions that another thing to do in the morning is to increase your core body temperature. And you can do that by the cold water immersion, which we've talked about before, or a cold shower. And that sort of sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but if you are cold, if you immerse yourself in a cold environment, your body core temperature increases to keep your
body will
warm.
shunt all your blood into your organs and protect that core and keep that temperature high.
Exactly. So if you can achieve that early in the morning as well, you can also achieve that through an early morning exercise.
It's got to be the cold has got to. It can't be too long though.
No, it doesn't have to be too long.
Yeah.
But even just some exercise, it doesn't have to be your full daily workout as soon as you wake up, but it can just be something that you do, like a skip rope or some push-ups or something like that, immediately in the morning to raise that core body temperature. Can also help kickstart your circadian rhythm to be more effective in the evening.
I don't know if there's much science to it, but I reckon a nice hot cuppa works pretty well as well. Just a
definitely.
Nice
in the morning,
hot cup of black coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
Really gets you.
Yeah.
When do you have yours? Immediately after you've woken up, or?
Probably. We got a coffee machine that takes quite a while to heat up, like a sort of a traditional coffee machine. So maybe 45 minutes, sort of thing, an hour. I don't think you want to put anything in your stomach as soon as you wake up. I'd probably ideally wait a couple of hours, but...
Well, you probably shouldn't you? You want to let your body do its own cortisol release, and then
that's right. Yeah,
maybe an hour, 45 minutes, hour and a half afterwards after you've woken up.
And that's where most of the research points to is 60 to 90 minutes after you've woken is when you have your coffee. And it's a little bit long for me. I'll push it to an hour, but I like mine within half an hour of waking up.
I'm probably going 45 minutes, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Just if I had an instantaneous coffee machine, it'd be even harder.
Start out with your little lemon and ginger teas.
Mickey, you are a coffee drinker, mate?
Mate, I've tried to come off the coffee actually. I'm a little bit intolerant to coffee, which was potentially one of the things that was impeding my sleep. So if I had anything caffeinated, sort of after midday, it was really affecting my ability to get to sleep.
Yeah.
It also makes me feel a little bit anxious. I've actually tried to remove coffee from my daily intake altogether.
Yeah, right.
Coffee's a tricky one for some people. Some people just don't metabolize it, and because caffeine does have that long half-life,
isn't it interesting?
If you sort of lack that gene, you can get tested for it. Some people just cannot metabolize coffee, and it'll just mess you up. My wife's the same, Mickey. So she can't have a coffee after about midday or 11 a.m. Otherwise, it's still playing havoc by the time she goes to bed. Yeah. And just some people lack that pathway to metabolize it properly.
Some people can have it before they go to bed.
I could have a black coffee and then go straight to bed.
Really?
Seemingly like no dramas. Maybe it would affect my sleep if you measured it in terms of sleep quality, but just and then some people have it, 8 hours before and you're still suffering the consequences. So
yeah.
Well,
they do reckon that no coffee after 2 12 or 2 p.m.
Yeah, I think
Or-
it's a good idea, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like if you want to get the best sleep.
Yeah.
So we've talked about there what to do in the morning to help our sleep at night. That's pretty good. But what about any more of those, or should we go into the evening routine?
Yeah, evening. Yeah, or even,
Yeah.
yeah, evening, definitely.
Well, just one more for the morning. I think Rue was heading in the direction. He may have even said it in his own way, but something that I do now, which I didn't do before, was as soon as I'm awake, I get up.
Yep.
So if it's normally, to be honest, years of getting out of bed to go to training early anyway. I'm normally awake somewhere between sort of 5:15 and 5:45. And when I was lacking sleep, I would sort of lay there trying to rest and get back to sleep. And now I just get up.
Yeah, good point.
As soon as I'm awake, I get up.
Yeah.
And I find that that's something Huberman, I think, talks about as well, is, you know, as we said earlier, if you're not asleep, get up. But that's something I do pretty regimented. I'm very regimented with now. As soon as I wake up, I get up.
Yeah. Yeah, because he mentions like on a weekend when you're more inclined to have a bit of a sleep in on a Sunday morning, that sleep in shouldn't go any more than 1 hour after you normally wake during the week. So if you are having a sleep in, just keep it to an hour after your normal waking time, and that shouldn't interfere then with your sleep cycles.
Yeah.
I think there's an argument if you're chronically sleep deprived during the week, there can be some catch-up sleep on top of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if you're sleeping well, definitely
Yeah.
that would be.
Well, actually, Jonesy touched on that briefly, and I think we shouldn't skip over that. Sleep deficit is a very, very real thing.
Yeah.
And it ties in a little bit to what Rue was saying. And I actually applaud Rue because he's clearly very, very in tune with his own body requirements. So sleep deficit is a scientifically proven, exceptionally real thing for people. If your genetic functioning is reliant, and everyone is individual on this, like I said earlier, but if you function optimally on 7 hours of sleep and you only get, say, 6.5 hours or 6 hours and 15 minutes or something like that, after a period of time, your body will try and recover that deficit, whether that is multiple day naps or a slightly longer sleep on a weekend or something like that. So I found it very interesting with what Rue was talking about, how he said, no, I don't nap every day, but I nap when I feel like I need a nap. And his body wakes him up. And I'm quite similar to you in that regard, Rue. Now I am getting more in tune with my sleep. I'll put myself down for a nap in the afternoon if I feel I need it. But within 15 to 20 minutes, 25 tops, my body can go from what I feel is quite a deep sleep to waking me up. But it's definitely the body recovering the deficit, and it will look to do that for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, some afternoon, evening tips. We talked about waking up in the morning and receiving direct morning sunlight. There's evidence to support being out or observing the sun setting sky.
Yep.
So that actually starts kicking in your brain to start thinking, okay, things are starting to wind down.
It's going to get dark.
It's going to get dark. Start producing that melatonin now. Start kicking in that sleep cycle. So it doesn't mean going down to the beach every day and watching the sunset over the water. It just means being outside to see the different hues, because they reckon
Different
that
reds and
yeah,
blues,
because you
lights,
reckon your eyes, your retina, whatever, receives and then receives a different light colours or the different shades of the different suns that you see. So in the morning, we're seeing the more bright oranges and the reds, which stimulate that waking up process. And in the afternoon, we're seeing the pinks, the oranges, yellows, those sort of colours. And your eye recognises that and then informs your brain that things are starting to wind down. The body is an amazing
Crazy,
thing,
isn't it? It's just in tune with billions of years of evolution.
Yeah.
So that's
and
circadian rhythm.
No doubt that's what primeval man his cycle would have been based on.
Yep.
The morning sun, the evening sun.
As soon as it gets dark, they probably would have gone to bed. They didn't have light.
No.
So one of the things I would say would be minimize sort of a central nervous system stimulus before bed, and bright lights, blue light emitting devices.
Yeah, that's
There's
the
even
big one.
people that talk about having your bedroom being pitch black, block out blinds, and they even cover up the little LED lights on air conditioners, electronic points, all that kind of thing. And having, I didn't write down the study, but there is a study that people have done on the skin cells of your body, not just your eyes, having photosensitivity. So in the study, they put the light behind the person's knee, and that was enough to wake them up. So the
Wow.
the skin cells, or the skin, have receptors for bright light. So that's, the theory behind turning off all your little devices. Obviously, you don't want any EMF devices.
No.
You don't want your phone next to your bed.
Exactly, yeah.
Get rid of that kind of stuff.
A lot to be said about having like a normal little battery ran alarm clock.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. Even that, they talk about sort of the red light. You needing the red light of the, you can get blue or red light, sort of having red. If you're going to have a light in your room, it to be red. And I would even suggest utilizing that circadian rhythm, or, mellow down once the sun's gone down. Take it easy. Wake up naturally when the light comes in. Obviously, the modern day man is going to need an alarm at some point, but it'd be best to wake up without that blaring.
Yeah, and you
alarm.
can train your body for that. You
Definitely,
can train.
yeah.
The more times you wake up at a certain point in the morning, your body clock will assume that wake up time
Yeah,
without an alarm clock. But I guess it's just a bit of a risk if you got to go to work and something might happen that you oversleep.
Well, I know the modern ancestral man is going to do some things. You might have to use your computer for work before you're going to bed, but there are some devices you can get. There's an app called Flux, or f.lux, which is a really good one. It changes the blue light on your laptop to be a red light emitting light, which is better for you to try and help you go to sleep. There's blue blocking glasses you can get. I know they don't look very cool, but that kind of imitates some of the light going down and being darker, and maybe more of a fire, the colours from a fire that probably ancestral man would have sat around before going to bed. Yeah, and I think Huberman talks about having a consistent sleep-wake time. You don't want to, like he was talking about the weekend, you don't want to go an hour, sort of sleep in for an hour too long, because that will then mess around with your personal circadian rhythm. And so having that consistent sleep time, and no electronics and TV or mobile. And
There was a study that he mentioned, and it's pretty hard to escape in our modern world, sitting back in the evening and maybe doing some work on a computer or watching Netflix on the telly, whatever. There is evidence to show that what we spoke about before, about seeing the afternoon sun setting light, can actually have a counteractive effect on the blue light that you're seeing late in the evening. So
your body's thinking it's that light is sunrise. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's just so that watching the screens at night before bed is not a good thing.
Yeah,
it's it interferes with your circadian rhythm. But seeing that sun setting sky light at that time
is enough.
Is enough to counteract
okay.
the effect of potentially counteract the effect of later in the evening watching a screen or something like that.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's a modern ancestral man tip right there. Very good.
But I mean, even if you're going to watch telly or do something, which a lot of people will, you can do things like turn the lights down while you're watching TV.
Yeah.
So don't watch it in a bright room.
Yep, exactly.
And then you're probably not going to be sitting super close to the screen, so you're sitting back a little bit. So you can at least still minimise the amount of light that's going to come in that's going to disrupt that melatonin and things like that.
One thing I've tried to do is make my house a cave. I try to think about me living in a cave at night. So I turn
Embrace the dark.
I turn off all my lights. If I'm watching a bit of telly, which I quite enjoy doing, late in the evening, and I'll roll on the floor on a foam roller and just do some stretching stuff. Everything's dark. I like to make it all dark. I try to bring down the temperature in my bedroom, which is probably a thing that's also we haven't spoke about. But
About
having
16 to 20 degrees, I think.
a cool temperature in your room is a good thing for producing melatonin and increasing your sleep quality. So I try to do that, and they recommend candles as well. So
Candles are real good.
Using candles, obviously safely in your house so that they don't burn down and burn something. But you can set up a candle quite safely. They reckon having multiple candles in the evening, having that flickering, burning flame, really is conducive to stimulating that sleep response.
And maybe a plant, mother-in-law's tongue. I don't know if you know that plant, which is kind of up and pointy.
Yeah, is that humidifying the air or something?
Yeah. Purifies the air, gets rid of the toxins, stores them in the plant. It's a good one,
Yeah.
One of the things I came across, you were talking about the sort of having a cool environment and like cooling your body temperature down. One of the things that sounds counterintuitive but apparently works is actually having quite a hot bath or shower. So you get in there and you really heat yourself up. But after you get out, that drop of temperature stimulates that same drop that you want to promote sleep.
Okay.
So if you're in a very hot shower or a bath, then you get out and you into a cooler environment and your core temperature does drop by a little bit, that is that same trigger for your body to actually stimulate sleep. So
yeah, right.
Yeah, sounds counterintuitive, but a hot shower or a bath.
Yeah. And then on the temperature thing, I didn't know this, but Huberman mentions that you've got sensors in your hands and feet that help distribute heat.
Glabrous skin cells?
Yeah, and they can help distribute or regulate heat. So often, when you get hot in bed, and this is one of the strategies that I'm trying to employ when I do wake up in the middle of the night, is putting a foot,
stick your foot out,
or a hand out of my blankets, because I'm thinking that maybe I'm waking up because I'm getting too hot.
Yeah.
But he reckons that if you do that, you put a foot or a hand out of the blankets, then that can help cool your body down just by doing that simple little act.
Have you seen those cold pads they use now?
No.
Some of the guys that have got money to burn, they actually buy a pad that you put on top of your mattress that you're essentially sleeping on. And I think it's got a thin layer of water or some sort of liquid in it, and it actually circulates it through, and it keeps your body at an ideal temperature for sleeping.
Wow.
So whether you've got too many blankets on and you might be too hot, or maybe you're sleeping next to a partner who, often like one partner wants to have a really heavy doona on and someone wants to have a lighter quilt or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, these cold pads that you sleep on will obviously sense what temperature it is, and they'll keep your body at an ideal temperature.
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, they're sort of in fashion now amongst the people that have lots of money to throw at this stuff.
$1,000,
Yeah.
But it might be awesome to have that. If you run hot and your partner runs cold and you can't sort of sleep together without getting grumpy, then who knows? That might be.
Well, even if it did cost $1,000, I mean, what price do you put on your health if poor sleep is ruining your life?
Yeah.
Pony up, get the money if that's what you need to do. Yeah. It's probably cheaper and better options, and we can probably talk about sort of like dietary and supplement things as well a bit later on that might help promote sleep.
Well, let's do that now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's tons, isn't there, for both for getting to sleep and for helping promote like more restful sleep through the night.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, melatonin supplements are a big one, and I've tried those. Not that I want to have take them too often. I think we've discussed this in previous podcasts.
How do you go with them? Because I'll let you go, and then I'll talk about my experience with them.
If I take in pill format, I open up the capsule and I put it in some water, stir it up and drink it, and I'll pretty much have that at 9 o'clock at night before I go to bed at maybe 10:30. And I find that my sleep is when I'm asleep, I am out. I do sometimes wake up a little bit sort of groggy on it.
Yeah, that's a big problem with melatonin, isn't it? The next day drowsiness or grogginess.
Yeah. And I don't like that feeling, so therefore I've limited my use of it, and I'll just really have some in the evening where I really need a good night's sleep. But it does help my quality of sleep when I do have it.
Interestingly, what I've found is I think the pill that I have has too much melatonin in it.
Yeah.
Because I can't get to sleep.
Oh.
I've had to sort of rip them in half and only have a little bit.
Yep.
I think might have been 12 milligrams. I don't know if that
really?
sounds
That's
a
quite
lot.
a bit. That sounds like a lot.
Well, don't they recommend just 2 or 3?
Yeah,
milligrams?
well, I didn't realise until that happened. And so this is the tablet, right? This comes in that size.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was 2 milligrams. But even then, it was, and I think even I think too much melatonin interferes with the serotonin pathway or something, and you get an increase in serotonin. So then it's hard to get to
serotonin
sleep.
is a precursor to melatonin.
Right.
So I was actually going to touch on that. So like if melatonin is sort of making you groggy and you're getting some of those effects like that, I think sometimes it's really valuable to take some of the precursors. So either L-tryptophan, which is the amino acid which eventually down the track makes melatonin,
Right.
or one step up from that, which is 5-hydroxytryptophan. They can really help promote good, long, restful sleep. You're essentially giving your body the building blocks that it needs to make enough serotonin and eventually melatonin.
Yep.
But you're not necessarily going to get those effects of that sort of sledgehammer of having the actual melatonin.
Yeah. Okay.
So a lot of sleep supplements contain either the L-tryptophan or the 5-hydroxytryptophan. And I actually take 5-HTP.
Yeah.
Everywhere sells it now. And I have amazing sleep and much more vivid dreams. I really, really rate it. Probably the one caveat with the 5-HTP is if you're taking an SSRI, so if you have mental health issues and you're having SSRI, you can't take 5-HTP. It's contraindicated. You can actually have problems with too much serotonin.
Okay.
Speak to your doctor first.
Speak to your doctor first, yeah. If you take any medication that affects serotonin pathways, then 5-HTP might be contraindicated, but I believe you can still take the L-tryptophan.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I'll have a look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you get that off iHerb? Or
I actually get that from Bulk Nutrients in Australia,
Okay.
bulknutrients.com.au.
Bulk Nutrients.
I just take 100 milligrams a day,
Yep.
and it's really transformed my sleep to the next level. I've always been quite a good sleeper, but I just find my dreams are so much more vivid now. I really enjoy going to sleep, and I can tell the difference because I cycle on and off. I think almost all supplements you probably should cycle.
Yep.
I think that includes HTP. I notice when I cycle off it and then I go back on it, and I was like, oh, I had the best sleep and really good dreams.
Yeah, right. Okay. So it's really deepening your REM sleep.
It must be, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what it does, but it really, I mean, I know what it does. It makes you, make more serotonin and melatonin. But in terms of REM versus deep sleep, I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
But I definitely have vivid dreams, which is
cool.
it's kind of cool. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, mate. I'll take a
rate
note
it.
of that.
Yeah. I think it's definitely one of the hacks that people can use if you don't want to go to the level of taking melatonin. And it's an over-the-counter medication that you can buy. I know melatonin can be both sort of like prescription or over-the-counter, depending on the potency and stuff you're getting. But
yeah, and I think also your age. If you're over 55, you can get it over the counter. If you're under 55, you have to get a prescription for it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Whereas I'm always a big fan of taking the building blocks to let your body do it naturally rather than actually just giving it something.
Yeah, totally agree, mate.
Then you're sort of giving yourself the option of making what is optimal for you.
Great point. Great point.
So yeah, both of those, the L-tryptophan and the 5-HTP, are only just amino acids, but they're going to, make that.
Yeah, cool, mate. Good advice. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really good.
Hey, just in relation to that melatonin, guys, really interestingly, our naturopathic oncologist, when Kim got sick, actually brought a study to us in relation to compounded high-dose melatonin and the reduced recurrence in cancer. So we were actually using high-dose melatonin that we had to get compounded over here by script. And we were using that for her sleep, and then also as a way of minimising sort of return disease.
Wow.
I guess, ironically, as you guys have sort of indicated there, she really struggled with that feeling quite sluggish on the high dose melatonin. So another I guess more natural way or plant-based medicine that we utilised was actually THC oil, and we had that made by some friends over in remote Victoria, and that's something that wifey has used to assist her with, I guess, not only management of pain through chemotherapy and things like that, but also assisting her with eating, minimising the nausea. But one of the primary reasons was actually to aid her sleep. And it did that very, very successfully. So I think that is another natural another natural medicine that I think can be utilised as a way of aiding people, and I think it's a far more healthy option than some of these, as Matt indicated earlier, some of these, drugs that might be prescribed in the way of Valium and things like that.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Mickey. Like, I don't have any direct experience with THC for sleep or anything like that, but I would say, like, if you're going to say, that versus Valium, like, at least, THC comes from a natural plant-based compound.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mate, did she have any dramas with the sort of sluggishness with THC versus sort of like melatonin? Obviously can have that sort of hangover effect the next day where you feel drowsy. Was that the same thing with those drops you were talking about that she took, or?
Yeah, look, it definitely wasn't anywhere near as bad as the high-dose melatonin. She did say at the start that there was a sense of sort of feeling, she needed sort of a good 25 to 30 minutes to get going in the morning. But then as soon as she was up and at it and she'd been functioning, the effects wore off pretty much immediately. Whereas comparatively to the melatonin, she was really dragging her heels for, sometimes up to 2 hours in the morning, just really struggling to function. So I think everyone is different, and the way that we metabolize these things is very, it's very individualized. But certainly comparably to melatonin or even, the impacts of say Valium, for instance, because we've mentioned that, it's far less than that in our experience.
I'll tell you a good one for people who have trouble getting to sleep is GABA. I don't know if any of you guys have come across GABA. It's gamma-aminobutyric acid. And so GABA is essentially the sort of active component of Valium, really. So like Valium potentiates GABA, but GABA is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. So if you take a whack of GABA, and you can buy GABA, it's over the counter. You can get it again from Bulk Nutrients. They sell a GABA powder. If you're a person that has trouble with a racing mind and you can't get to sleep, and you take a dose of GABA, that will put you out like a sledgehammer.
Wow.
It's very, very effective. Yeah. That could be a bit of an option to... sorry, mate, go ahead.
No, I was taking a supplement there which had a high component of GABA in it, Matty, and it was explained as being a neural calming supplement. So that's exactly right, and it definitely had that effect too.
Oh, mate, I know people that have taken GABA and it just puts them out within like 15 minutes. It's almost like just, no matter what you're doing, you're going to sleep after you have that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very, very strong. Yeah, it's a strong inhibitory neurotransmitter. So, I mean, if you have enough of that, it's going to probably put you to sleep. But it's something that people can access over the counter. It's inexpensive. I would argue that it has sort of a similar effect to Valium, but it obviously doesn't come with the risks of Valium. Like Valium has quite addictive properties and can have other dramas.
Yeah.
Whereas I think, again, if you're just taking something in a more natural form, it's probably got less side effects. Yeah. I'm sure GABA still could have side effects. You definitely wouldn't want to take it and be driving a vehicle or doing something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an option.
Long-term side effects. Would you just obviously cycle it like everything else?
Yeah, I probably would look at cycling. Yeah, I think everything is worth cycling. Just about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jonesy, you listened to Human Sleep Toolkit, didn't you?
I did. Yeah.
And what did you think about his supplement kit? Like he had a supplement protocol there with a few different sups that he mentions to have in one sort of hit.
Did he? I'm sure he talked about GABA.
He might have, because that name rings a bell.
Yeah.
But he mentioned one magnesium threonate.
Yeah, and chelate.
Oh, I didn't hear that one.
Threonate.
Threonate?
Yeah, the good thing about threonate, it crosses the blood-brain barrier. So
that's what he says.
Quite good. That's pretty much the only form of magnesium that'll go through the blood-brain barrier.
Yep.
So obviously, the body and the brain all need magnesium, but magnesium is critical for detox, and one of the main things that your brain is doing overnight when you're sleeping is detoxifying.
Right.
So you get that glymphatic drainage, the sort of drainage around the glial cells, and you're getting a lot of actually like repair of the brain and detoxification. So magnesium is a crucial mineral in that detoxification process.
Yeah, right.
And obviously mag-threonate will across the blood-brain barrier. So it's super expensive, but probably quite a good form of magnesium for
he
for
was
brain
saying
health.
145 milligrams of that at least 30 to 60 minutes before you go to bed.
Yeah, I take Mag 3 every night before bed.
Yep.
Yeah,
right.
it's hard to tell if it does anything or not, but I'm sure it can't hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. He mentions another one, myo-inositol, myo-inositol. I'd never heard of that one before, but he reckons that's really effective. 900 milligrams, 30 to 60 minutes before sleep.
Yeah, okay, for sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I haven't come across that in the context of sleep, but
he said that was really effective. But obviously, these are supplements that, I mean, I've never used them, but I'm just sort of going by what I've researched. We're not medically qualified to recommend these or anything, but they're just things that, I mean, I'd probably consider trying them. But yeah, they're not medically sort of recommended from us at all.
No, they're over the counter. You can
do your own research.
Yeah, that's right.
Definitely.
At your own
Work
risk.
with your physician if you need to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Seek some expert advice.
Yeah. I mean, I'm big for like adopting behavioural techniques before trying supplementation or drugs.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said or achieved by changing some behavioural things and just experimenting with that first.
Yeah.
Then maybe implementing supplementation in those behavioural adaptions as well.
Yeah. I would think that some of the tips that we'd given about sort of no devices before bed, making it really dark, rising when the sun comes up, getting outside, seeing the sun, going to, winding down when it gets dark, trying to avoid your devices.
And we haven't mentioned one of the biggest killers of sleep is alcohol.
Yeah.
And this is one thing I have reassessed myself, because this winter I've been drinking a lot of red wine. So I'll probably drink 2-3 glasses a night whilst preparing dinner, then have some with dinner. And it took me a while, just being stupid, to realise that this is probably having an impact on my sleep. So in the evening, I'm drinking more alcohol than I normally would. I don't normally drink during the week, but this winter, for some reason, I've been really enjoying the reds. And I think that's having a detrimental effect on my sleep.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. We alcohol, we could do it. We'll do a podcast on alcohol, I think, because I think we're kidding ourselves about alcohol as a society.
Yeah.
I could get on, go down a rabbit hole or soapbox here.
You just get on any soapbox?
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'd like a bit of alcohol myself, but we're kidding ourselves if our powers that be, our health professionals, are recommending 2 drinks a day.
Yeah.
Come on.
That's a joke.
It's a joke.
Yeah.
It's a class 1 carcinogen.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it
a
ruins
poison.
sleep. Like
it's a
you're
poison.
saying.
And there's nothing really beneficial to achieve from alcohol.
No. And people say, have a couple of drinks helps you get to sleep. Well, it might help you get to sleep.
It does help you get to sleep, but it ruins your sleep long term.
It does. Yes,
exactly.
definitely ruins your sleep
That's
quality.
where people get into trouble with it, because you can have alcohol that will help you get to sleep initially, but you get a really poor night's sleep.
Oh, mate, and that's one thing I've been experiencing. So if I've had a night on the beers, my night's sleep, I'll pass out, boom, I'm done, but then I'll wake up 5 times throughout the night.
Sweaty, dry mouth.
Going for a wee, like getting rid of the alcohol. It just ruins your night's sleep. And the next day I'm not hungover, but I'm just knackered from lack of sleep.
Yeah. But
that's
that's a bit of a hangover anyway, isn't it? Lack of sleep, that whole what it's doing to your body, whether your hangover is a dirty headache and throwing up, there is a hangover from the night before. It's really funny. I mean, if someone said to me, take a pill, this would be pretty good for an hour or so, but tomorrow morning you're going to be ill. You're going to have a real headache. You probably won't come good till about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. No one's going to do that.
No.
To have a couple of beers, 3 or 4, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We do that all the time.
It's a social thing, isn't it?
It's
that
is.
social.
Yeah. You try not having alcohol anywhere. No, I'm not drinking. Or you go to a party, you're not drinking.
Oh, yeah.
Look at this guy.
Especially Australian culture is quite bad. We're pretty big drinkers in the scheme of the worldwide.
That's why the zero alcohol drinks are great. You hold the stubby there and you hide the label, and it looks like you're having a couple of beers. But you can.
I come clean with you, lads. I went to a Christmas party with you guys about 3 or 4 years back, and I didn't want to drink that year because it was my thing. I think I don't know if someone busted me.
Really?
Yeah, that's right. Someone busted me. I won't go into it, but I had stubbies of kombucha, and I was putting them in like a stubby holder, and I was just necking down just like I was having light brown stubs all day. I was drinking kombuchas all day.
But isn't that
Was that
bad?
the same night
That's
the same night you sculled a half a bottle of Sailor Jerry's?
Must have been a different Christmas party. I've had ups and downs over the years of the Chrissy parties, but that year I was just for myself. I wanted to do something. I wanted to observe like a Christmas party without alcohol.
Good on you, man.
And I actually had a really great night. But I was on the kombuchas. I would have been very well hydrated with a very rich microbiome.
Oh yeah, and blood sugars would have gone through the roof.
Yeah. All of that. But yeah.
Yeah, so definitely alcohol, getting back to the sleep.
That's
Let's do a podcast on alcohol.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, we will.
Because I'd like to.
Maybe we should have a beer while we do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Or a glass of red wine or whatever.
Let's be really hypocritical.
Just be
see
hypocrites.
see how our cognitive decline goes and we can't talk.
From a health point of view, there's arguments about, a small amount of red wine and cardiovascular health and that. So we won't go into it now, but
we
I
will
think,
in the future because I think that is bullshit.
Yeah, there are things that you can do behaviourally and nutrition wise to counteract the effects of alcohol.
Yeah.
With regards to gut biome, but we'll talk about that on another podcast.
Let's go for. We'll do an alcohol one soon for the listeners.
Yeah,
definitely.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah,
but it does affect your sleep. Getting back to the sleep.
Yeah,
and your
I reckon
sleep
one
quality.
thing on sleep we haven't touched on really is your sleep positioning and also your breathing during sleep.
Oh,
yeah, wow.
mate.
Yeah, so I mean, sleep like apnea is a whole rabbit hole that we could go down. That would probably be a whole podcast. But there's interesting research on sleep positioning.
And nasal breathing
and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You really don't want to sleep on your stomach. Really promotes very poor sleep, makes it very difficult for you to breathe. Apparently the best position is to be a side sleeper, and the best of the best is apparently to sleep on your right-hand side. So if you want to have the best quality sleep, sleeping on your right-hand side. I've actually found
pressure on the heart, or because the heart's slightly on the left-hand side, or
I don't know if it's that's actually a good point. It may be. Yeah. I'm not too sure. That's just what the research says, and they've analysed all the different patterns of sleep if they, look at it over a big population, then people that sleep on their right-hand side get the best sleep.
Mate.
But
because it's an interesting point to say that, because that's where I get my best sleep is on my right-hand side.
yeah.
I can only sleep on my right.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I mostly sleep on my right-hand side as well. But the other thing that I've done that has helped with my sleep, and I'm not doing it at the moment, is actually use those breathing strips that go over your nose overnight that open up your nostrils.
Yeah.
It just promotes getting a bit more
90s
air.
footy. Did you have plenty of those playing footy in the 90s?
No.
Oh, you didn't?
What, the nasal strips?
Yeah. It used to open up your nasal.
Oh,
It makes a big difference, though, don't you reckon?
Yeah.
And it promotes nasal breathing rather than mouth breathing.
Yeah.
Because I think
It's
mouth
that focus.
breathing, we know mouth breathing's not good for dental health and a range of other things, but I think it actually helps just for your quality of sleep. So I've found those nasal strips are quite good for just getting better restorative sleep.
Yeah. Well, the research suggests that if you can sleep as a nasal breather, the quality of sleep is better.
Yeah.
It also prevents you from suffering those sleep apnea type things. So like, gagging on your breath.
Yep.
When you're breathing through your mouth and stuff like that. So, and I've heard somewhere that you can practice becoming a better nasal sleeper if you, when you're working out or doing exercise, is try to breathe through your nose only. So not breathing it all through your mouth. So there's some correspondence between exercising as a nasal breather only, and that can help you adopt a nasal breathing habit whilst you sleep.
There's an excellent book called The Oxygen Advantage by Patrick McEwen. Real good. You can get it out from the public library if you want. But that's all about breathing through your nose, and he talks about exercising, and he talks about taping your mouth at night.
Yep.
To train your body to breathe through your nose.
Yeah. How would you go, Mick, doing a long-distance run, just breathing out of your nose? Be a fair challenge, I'd say.
Yeah, I think it would be a fair challenge. I think it'd be quite difficult, but there is certainly research that supports that people who train over long periods through nasal breathing are actually have better performance. So it's something I definitely concentrate on with my long slow runs. is keeping the mouth closed and breathing through the nose. But I've actually got the big race this Sunday, boys, and I can assure you that it'll probably be all through the mouth, the breathing.
Mate, do you use those nasal strips to just open up your nasal passage a bit?
I don't. One thing I did use a while back was an oxygen restriction mask. When I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It's basically a face piece. It wraps around and goes around your ears, and you can adjust the nozzle at the front, and it restricts the amount of air that you can actually suck in. And so the theory behind that is that I would use that at a variety of different times. Sometimes I used it during my intervals. Other times I used it while I was in recovery. But that's a whole other concept. But I guess it ties in with breathing, not really with sleep.
There's a lot of devices and things that can help people sleep. And if those fellas out there that are suffering from sleep apnea, definitely would recommend getting it addressed. You can go to the local chemist and they can help you do a sleep assessment. My brother, one of his close mates, died at the age of 42. I think he was quite a heavy fella, but he died in his sleep from sleep apnea, just stopped breathing. And that was just devastating. Like, young family, one of those things that you just don't really think about addressing. You just, you wake up in the morning and it's only your missus that says, I thought you were going to die last night. And sometimes my wife says that. She says that I stop breathing and then I'll sort of gasp for a breath. And it's only really when I'm on my back. But then when I go over in my side, it stops.
I've experienced.
She had her hands over your mouth, though, didn't she, Ruth?
Yeah, no doubt. But definitely, definitely there are things that fellas can do to go and get it checked out. And I definitely recommend it. I mean,
it's really insidious, isn't it, the sleep apnea? Because you don't really realise maybe the only symptom might be that you just feel lethargic all the time and you're not feeling like you get a rested sleep.
And your partner is probably the best gauger to give you that information because you don't realise that it's happening.
It's so bad for your cardiovascular health and your risk of heart attack and stuff like that goes up.
You can get a test, a
yes,
sleep apnea test.
You can,
and you get electrodes put on you. You've got to sleep with a little.
You can go right into hospital and do a high level one, or like Roo said, you can do one through the chemist. Some chemists will give you like a take home one that you can do.
Doctors will give you one.
Yeah, it's very worthwhile. If you've got any doubts, you need to get onto that. You really do.
And even just try little things if you can't be asked going down the chemist or going through the whole process. Just try little things like you mentioned about taping your mouth shut and trying that nasal breathing or trying the strips over your nose to increase your nasal cavity. A good friend of ours that we know, he's adopted. Well, his wife's told him that his snoring is too bad. He'll admit he's put a little bit of weight on over the last few months. But he's been using this device that you can get at the chemist, a box full of them for $30 called Mute, M-U-T-E. And it's like a little nasal clip and it goes into your nostrils and then it opens up like a butterfly sort of clip and it stretches your nasal passages outwards. And that can help open up your nasal passages and therefore increase your ability to nasal breathe whilst you're asleep. So give that a go. I'm actually going to head down to the chemist and get some just to try it out. I've
been thinking of trying those out too.
Yeah.
Uncomfortable, do you reckon? Or having something poked up your nose?
Yeah, I don't know. He reckons it has affected him a little bit. Like he's got used to it though.
Yeah.
So I guess you can.
I guess like anything.
Yeah.
Do it for long enough.
Yeah.
Get used to it.
Worth a try though.
It's really important though. Like if you swear you pay 8 hours a night, you're spending 1/3 of your life asleep. So you may as well do it well.
Definitely. Right. And what about your partner?
Make sure it's restorative.
Sometimes I do feel sorry for my wife, having to put up with mine. Yeah. It must affect their sleep quality too.
I feel sorry for your partner.
I think we can't emphasise enough, guys, the importance of sleep and the correlations with reduced mortality, early death. This is a really, really pertinent issue. Roo, you hit it on the head earlier when you said of the 3 pillars of health, it's probably at the top. And so I think we can encourage our listeners that if you are struggling with sleep, try and implement some of these behavioural changes that we've discussed. And if you're still not getting there, then do seek some advice from either an alternative health practitioner or a GP or whatever your issue might be. If it's psychological, maybe find some help, get someone that you can speak to.
Yeah, good call.
But we cannot emphasise enough, can we, guys, the importance of quality sleep and making this really of the utmost importance.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably, I know Smithy likes to finish, but that.
Hey,
might
but
be a good
before
way to
we do, I've always been intrigued by the concept, and I'm sure you guys experience this. After you've had sex and you've blown your load,
Here we go.
you pass out into a deep sleep. And I've coming into this topic, I thought, wow, that's a little topic that I'd really like to have a look into. It is ancestral. Yeah. It is totally ancestral. There is scientific evidence and evolutionary evidence to support this fact that after a man's orgasm, he passes out into a deep sleep. So I'll get my facts right. Let me just put my glasses on. The scientific evidence shows that male orgasms release certain hormones, oxytocin, vasopressin, in conjunction with prolactin. These hormones are related to the production of melatonin and increase immediate sleep potential. And just on a side note, those hormones are released 4 times higher after sex orgasms than a masturbation orgasm, which probably explains why you can have a quick empty and be on your way. But after a sex orgasm, those are 4 times higher, those hormones released, therefore producing your sleep.
Why do they suggest that happens to males and not females? And is it an evolutionary trait?
Let me get on to the evolutionary.
I'm setting you up there because I know.
Thank you, mate. There are two proposals, evolutionary based. Ancestral mating strategies included women having multiple sex partners. Now, this probably doesn't put the women in a good light. Multiple sex partners to increase the likelihood of conception.
Right. So
the man falling asleep after sex enabled her to get out of there and move on.
Find another guy.
Wow.
Potentially. Now, I'm not saying anything about...
Yeah. For you, girls.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything disparaging about female. This is going back to primeval days, evolutionary. The more...
Can't argue evolution, mate.
The more sensitive, more emotional evolutionary theory espouses that man's primary goal to produce as many offspring as possible after sex, forcing him to sleep, ensures he remains by the woman's side. That is, if she's still there. She hasn't taken off. So by having him fall asleep, he remains in situ by her side, therefore producing a relationship base of the man and woman and increasing the likelihood of their offspring surviving.
Wow.
So back in primeval days, a child, a newborn child, has got a greater chance of survival when there are 2 parents looking after.
Yeah, makes sense.
After that child. So having the man and the woman hanging around creates a bond, and there's actual evidence to support this evolutionary theory. That oxytocin and vasopressin are linked to emotional attachment.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So those hormones are released after a male orgasm, and that explains the theory as to why you're a little bit more loving after a sexual experience than normal. So those hormones produce that feeling of love and connection.
Well, oxytocin's that one, like the skin-to-skin contact when the mother births the child and then the child goes to the breast and you get that skin-on-skin contact and you get the release of oxytocin. So,
yeah, right.
Yeah, similar sort of thing, I guess, sort of bonding and...
Yeah. I like that theory, that evolutionary theory. I think it's pretty cool.
Evolution is cool.
Yeah.
Ancestral man.
So there you go.
Cool.
That's a total relation to the ancestral modern man. So next time you've done the deed and you've blown your bolt, just think about that as you Z off into La La Land and you're totally incapacitated.
Well, very good. Very good.
And your missus is out the door.
Yeah. Or strangling you.
Yeah.
Good way to finish with...
Maybe we should have a podcast on sex.
Definitely.
We should.
It'll only be a very short one.
Yeah. be a minute long.
This won't take long, did it?
Well, anyway, if you want to get in touch with us, modernancestralman@gmail.com. Flick us an email. Let us know what you think. Till next time.
Cool.
Good stuff.
See you then.
See you, boys.
See you later.
Get your air guitars ready.